related to the transparency at FDA. The topics to be covered are: 1, early communication about emerging safety issues concerning FDA-regulated products. Number 2, disclosure of information about product applications that are abandoned, which means that no work is being done or will be undertaken to have the application approved or withdrawn by the applicant before approval. And 3, communication of agency decisions about pending product applications. I urge you to follow the activities of this task force and as we progress and find new ways of making our information more available to the public. The last topic, second topic that I'd like to speak about is patient-reported outcomes. Patient-reported outcomes have been really an interest to the agency in clinical trials. And a draft guidance was published over a year ago that has received quite a number of public comments. The final guidance has now been drafted and is receiving its levels of clearance, and I do hope that by the next meeting there will be something that will be able to speak more about this. This, I think, is a very important issue for clinical trials in chronic fatigue syndrome. And also, I would like to mention that there's a office within the Office of New Drugs that is specialized in reviewing applications that contain tools to measure patient-reported outcomes, which would be of benefit in clinical trials, including clinical trials for chronic fatigue syndrome. I thank you for your attention, and at this point, if I would entertain any questions from the committee.
I'll go this way, Nancy, and then we'll go this way.
Mark, two questions. Oops. Two questions. The first, in the 3 drugs approved for fibromyalgia, Lyrica, Cymbalta, Savella, is there any efforts by the FDA to do the stage 4, if you would, studies that would tell us if they're also efficacious in people with comorbid chronic fatigue syndrome?
Well, that really, I think you're referring to, okay, post-marketing studies with these products. Yeah. Yes. Well, initiation of upon the approval of these products, there were certainly a list of post-marketing commitments that were made by the applicants for each one of these products with the agency. I think what you're referring to is to something else, which probably has to do with continued drug development on the part of the applicant or the sponsor for these products. And that.
What I'm really asking is, our patients are tremendously drug sensitive. They have far more drug reactions than in what is listed, say, in the approvals. Is there some way to be keeping track of these drugs as they are being used in the chronic fatigue population for adverse outcomes?
There's no specific mechanism by diagnosis to report safety, but new products are still required to be monitored, and the owners of the new drug applications are required to report safety issues with their products. This includes, but is not limited to, submitting periodic reports. The frequencies of these are more frequent early on after the launch of the product, but these continue through the lifetime of the product.
You're going to ask about Ampligen?
And then
Mark, in public testimony, we had an individual who has been in our audience and has testified, who was actually pretty able, was able to kind of function at a pretty high level. And over the last year, she's now in a wheelchair. She's actually in the audience right now. And I think kind of seeing the changes in her functioning over this kind of period of time when she was both on Ampligen and then off Ampligen is really remarkable. That's just one person, and I'm certain that there's other people out there who probably seem to benefit from this drug. Given that we don't have any drugs at this point that are available through the FDA, I'm wondering if you can comment on just the incredible length of time that has gone on for the approval process for Ampligen, and if you can give us any sense of when some ultimate judgment will be made. And I think that this is something that our committee needs to know.
I think until there are changes in legislation and regulation, I'm unable to comment